The Raiders are sitting on the most dangerous pick in the entire draft, and it's already splitting their building in half. A proven veteran in Kirk Cousins on one side, a generational rookie in Fernando Mendoza on the other. One decision could save the franchise or drag it back into chaos again. But the real question is who's better right now. It's whether the Raiders can afford to get this decision wrong at all, because history says one wrong pick here can change everything. The Raiders are standing at the edge of something that could define the next decade of the franchise, and almost nobody agrees on what they should do next. On one side, you've got Kirk Cousins, a proven veteran, a stabilizing force, someone who can step in tomorrow and keep the offense competitive without needing time to adjust. On the other side, you've got Fernando Mendoza, a rookie quarterback with massive upside, the kind of talent people are already calling franchise-changing before he's even taken a snap in the NFL. And that's where the tension begins. Because this isn't just about talent anymore, it's about timing. Do you throw Mendoza into the fire immediately and risk overwhelming him with a complex NFL system, a struggling offensive line, and the weight of a franchise that hasn't had stability at quarterback in years? Or do you sit him behind Cousins, let him develop in silence, and hope he doesn't lose momentum while watching from the sideline? Inside the building, the message is simple on the surface: the best man will play. But everyone knows that phrase hides a much bigger debate. Veterans in the locker room, players like Max Crosby, aren't thinking about development timelines or long-term projections. They're thinking about wins right now, about respect in the locker room, about not wasting another season waiting for a rookie to figure things out. Meanwhile, the front office is staring at history. They remember what happens when teams rush quarterbacks too early, and they also remember what happens when they wait too long and miss their window entirely. Every decision feels like it carries two possible regrets, one immediate, one permanent. And hovering over all of this is the pressure of expectation. Because Mendoza isn't just any rookie. Around the league, he's already being projected as the likely #1 overall pick. That kind of hype doesn't disappear when the games start. It either turns into validation or it collapses under NFL speed. So now the Raiders are trapped in the most dangerous position in football, having to choose between patience and pressure, between development and desperation, between what looks smart on paper and what the locker room will actually accept when the season begins. And the truth is, no matter what they decide, someone inside that building is going to believe they got it wrong. But what makes this decision even more complicated is that the people making it know history is watching closely, and history is rarely forgiving when it comes to quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Every NFL team says the same thing when they draft a young quarterback at the top of the board: we'll do what's best for his development. But in reality, that decision is never just about development. It becomes a war between timelines, egos, pressure, and survival. And for the Raiders right now, that war is already heating up before Fernando Mendoza has even taken his first snap. On one side of the building, there's Kirk Cousins, a veteran who represents control, experience, and stability. The kind of quarterback who can step in on day one and immediately make the offense look functional. No chaos, no guessing, just execution. And for a franchise that has lived through instability for years, that feels like safety. But on the other side, there's Mendoza, a young quarterback with massive upside, the kind of prospect people don't just draft for production, they draft for possibility. The future of the entire franchise is tied to how fast he can become the guy, and that's where the danger begins. Because starting a rookie quarterback too early in the NFL isn't just about whether he can handle it physically. It's about what happens mentally when things go wrong. One bad stretch behind a weak offensive line, one series of blown protections, one nationally televised collapse, and suddenly confidence doesn't just dip, it fractures. And once that happens in the NFL, it doesn't always come back clean. Teams have seen this movie before. A young quarterback gets thrown into a situation that looks promising on paper, but the reality is chaos. The protection breaks down, the reads speed up, and the entire system becomes too heavy too fast. What was supposed to be learning on the field turns into survival mode. And the Raiders are painfully aware of that risk because their recent history at the position isn't exactly clean. The pressure in that locker room isn't just about developing a quarterback, it's about finally getting it right. That's why this decision is so dangerous. If they start Mendoza too early and he struggles, they risk slowing down his entire career trajectory. But if they wait too long, they risk losing the confidence of a player they believe could be the future of the franchise. And that's the trap because in the NFL, timing doesn't just matter, it defines everything. Right now, the NFL world is quietly building a narrative around Fernando Mendoza, and it's starting to feel bigger than just another top quarterback prospect. Some teams see him as the future face of a franchise before he's even taken a snap. Others, they're asking a very different question: is this hype actually real, or are we watching another college system quarterback being pushed into superstardom too early? Because here's the split that nobody inside the Raiders can ignore. On one side, Mendoza looks like everything you want in a modern NFL quarterback. Calm decision-making, clean reads, quick processing, and the ability to operate an offense without forcing chaos. The production is there, the confidence is there, and in college he looked like a player who always stayed in control of the moment, no matter the pressure. But on the other side, NFL evaluators are starting to raise a very uncomfortable concern. A large part of his success came in an offense built around fast reads, simplified progressions, and RPO-heavy concepts. And while that works perfectly in college football, the NFL is a completely different environment. Defenses disguise everything. Windows close faster. Mistakes get punished immediately. That's where the debate gets dangerous. Because some scouts believe Mendoza is already NFL ready, just needing time to adjust to speed and complexity. But others believe the system he played in masked how much development he still needs before he's ready to carry a franchise. And now the Raiders are stuck in the middle of that disagreement, with the no. One pick sitting right in their hands. To make it even more intense, league projections are still heavily leaning toward Mendoza going first overall. That kind of consensus creates pressure inside the building, because once the entire league believes a player is the guy, passing on him starts to feel like a mistake waiting to happen. But the NFL doesn't care about projections, it cares about survival. And history is full of quarterbacks who looked unstoppable in college until the speed of the league exposed every hidden weakness in their game. So now the real question isn't whether Mendoza is talented. Nobody is debating that anymore. The question is whether the Raiders are betting on a finished product or just a very convincing illusion. The Raiders aren't just deciding who to draft at number 1, they're sitting on a decision that could shake the entire NFL. Because the moment teams realized Fernando Mendoza might be the top pick, the phones started ringing. And suddenly, that single selection turned into one of the most valuable assets in football. Inside the building, the message is controlled. We've gotten calls, we're listening, but we're not moving the pick. That's the public stance. But behind closed doors, the reality is far more complicated. When teams start offering multiple first-round picks, the conversation stops being simple. It stops being about talent alone. It becomes about risk, timing, and legacy. Because this is where the NFL gets uncomfortable. Every team calling the Raiders is trying to sell a dream, a package of picks that could rebuild an entire roster, multiple starters, long-term depth, flexibility for years. On paper, it sounds like the smarter move every time. Why gamble everything on one quarterback when you could spread that value across 5 different players? But then comes the part nobody wants to admit out loud: you don't actually know what those picks will become. Draft history is full of safe value trades that turned into nothing. And it's just as full of franchises that passed on a quarterback only to watch him become the face of the league somewhere else. That's why the Mendoza situation feels different. Because this isn't just about drafting a player, it's about believing you've identified the player, the one who can change everything. And once you believe that, trading out becomes the hardest decision in football. Still, the pressure is real. The Raiders haven't had stability at quarterback in years. The fan base is desperate. The locker room wants wins now, and every voice in the building has a different version of what smart actually means. That's why even the idea of a massive trade package, 5 first-round picks, franchise-altering compensation, can't be dismissed immediately. It has to be heard, evaluated, weighed against the possibility that Mendoza might not just be good, he might be the kind of quarterback you never get another chance to draft again. And that's the tension. Because in one direction, you get a future built on volume, depth, and patience, and in the other, you get a single player who could define the franchise for a decade. And the hardest part, the Raiders might not know which reality they're actually holding until it's already too late. Every NFL draft starts with the same illusion that this time, teams finally have it figured out, that the scouts are right, that the tape doesn't lie, that the can't-miss prospect will finally deliver on the hype. But history tells a completely different story, and it's the one the Raiders are forced to relive every time they sit near the top of the draft board. Because the truth is brutal. The same draft that produces franchise quarterbacks and Hall of Fame defenders is also the same draft that produces career-altering mistakes. And sometimes, they exist side by side in the exact same class. Take the infamous 2007 NFL Draft. The top of the board looked like a guaranteed reset for struggling franchises. Instead, it became one of the clearest reminders that nothing in this league is predictable. Jamarcus Russell went first overall, the prototype arm talent, the physical tools, the hype. And then came the reality. A career that never matched the expectation. A pick that still gets referenced years later as a warning sign. But right behind that mistake came greatness. Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, Patrick Willis, Darrelle Revis, players who didn't just succeed, they defined an era. Hall of Fame talent sitting in the same draft where teams still got the most important pick wrong. And that's the part that haunts front offices. Because every time you think you're making a safe decision at the top of the draft, you're also deciding which version of history you're stepping into. The version where you land a franchise cornerstone, or the version where you become the cautionary tale everyone points to for the next decade. Even the 2008 class reinforces it. Matt Ryan becomes a franchise quarterback. Chris Long becomes a Super Bowl-winning leader. Jake Long dominates early, but even then nothing is guaranteed. Careers shift, expectations collapse, and what looked obvious on draft night becomes complicated in hindsight. And that's exactly why the Raiders' current decision hits so hard. Because when they look at Fernando Mendoza, they aren't just evaluating talent, they're stepping into the same historical trap every team before them has faced. The belief that this time will be different. But the NFL has never rewarded certainty, it only exposes it. And the uncomfortable truth is, the higher you pick, the more history expects you to be wrong before it ever lets you be right. On the surface, the NFL draft looks like pure football. War rooms, big boards, war strategy, cameras locked on a single moment that can change a franchise forever. But behind the scenes, the draft has never just been about football decisions. It's about money, power, leverage, and the business structure that quietly controls every pick at the top of the board. And the Raiders' situation with the number 1 pick is a perfect example of how deep that business side really goes. Because every time a team sits at the top of the draft, they're not just evaluating players like Fernando Mendoza, they're evaluating control. Control over contracts, control over timelines, control over the financial future of the entire franchise, and that's where things get complicated fast. There was a time in the NFL when drafting a quarterback first overall meant something completely different. It didn't just mean picking a player, it meant handing out a massive financial commitment before that player ever took a snap. Rookies would walk in as some of the highest paid players on the roster instantly. No proof, no production, just projection. And inside locker rooms, that created tension almost immediately. Veterans who had earned their contracts over years of grinding suddenly saw rookies arrive with more guaranteed money than players who had actually won games. That imbalance didn't just create frustration, it changed team dynamics. It changed expectations. It even changed how coaches managed the locker room. That pressure eventually forced the NFL to change the system completely. The rookie wage scale was introduced to reset everything, to remove the financial shock, to restore balance between proven players and unproven prospects. And just like that, drafting a quarterback became less about money and more about pure football evaluation again. But the business side never disappeared, it just evolved. Now when teams like the Raiders evaluate a number 1 pick, they're not just thinking about who can throw the ball the best, they're thinking about contract value, roster flexibility, trade leverage, and long-term franchise construction. Even the idea of trading down isn't just a football decision anymore, it's a financial calculation disguised as strategy. That's why offers like multiple first-round picks don't get ignored immediately, they get studied, broken down, weighed against risk models that go far beyond highlight reels. Because in today's NFL, the draft isn't just about choosing a player. It's about choosing a financial future and living with it for the next decade.